Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to my talk. And thank you so much, Pam Madsen, a very old friend of mine, with her husband, Eric Dries, who used to be my roommate for a long time. So it's very nice to see you again, and it's very nice to be here to talk about reimagining opera. Um, Reimagining opera is something which is very, very close to my heart. In fact, I've been reimagining opera since the year 98, 99, when I was asked to write my first opera. So before I go to talk about the specific four operas that I've written, I would like to give you a kind of an introduction to my thinking. So, as a composer, you are asked to write an opera. What do? You hide under your bed because opera is such an amazing tradition, and you do not know where to begin. It's so big and it's so pompous. Um, yeah, why is it so difficult to write an opera in the 21st century? What does it mean? First of all, it is difficult because the singing is so weird. It's that bel canto singing. And that singing is like that because they didn't have microphones, they didn't have speakers, and they needed to have the voice flying over the orchestra. Today, we have technology, we can do very different things with the voice, with the orchestra. We can have somebody whispering while the orchestra is playing, and we can hear them whisper in the end of the hall, which really change our perspective, and which really touches upon the idea of intimacy when it comes to speak in an opera. When you are singing bel canto, you can say, I'm alone in my room, but if you are bel cantoing, nobody will believe you. Everybody knows it's an illusion. So, first of all, there is that vocal technique that is connected to the opera that one needs to overcome or one needs to reinvent because we are able and we have now, it's like we have a kind of a resolution that we did not have in the past. And it would be ridiculous to use the old resolution, which gives us only a half of what the voice can do. Because the voice can whisper, the voice can scream, the voice can talk, the voice can talk in a very intimate way or sing in a very intimate way, as if like you are singing in the bathroom. That would not have been operatic before, but it might be operatic today. That is the biggest, one of the biggest hurdles, and that is something that, I worked on a lot in my operas. The voice is articulating in all its possible articulative ways. And people are whispering, people are singing with a lot of air, people are talking, people are half talking, half singing. There are all people are also using their voice in a mutated way, like that with fry or like this. Different tautologies of how to use the voice, so that it is doing a lot of things. The voice is a universe, and I try to experience this universe in every opera in a different way. That's the voice. But the voice is not all the reason of why opera is so difficult to approach today. There is something else when we think about opera that is not only the voice, but it has to do with the demeanor that we usually find in opera. which has a lot of pathos. Pathos that connect to the heroes, to the heroine, to the, war, to overcoming, or to winning, or to losing, or extreme drama. The pathos of the drama. Well, I'm not interested in that pathos of the drama. And I've been working in all my opera to create a different kind of theatricality of the musical text, which is actually all but not with pathos. It is almost like a reflection, or it can be a way of almost in a hesitant way thinking about something, making something happen, experiencing a becoming. So not something finished, not something already there that we are just singing and we remember the melody, but something which is happening at the moment and we are experiencing its coming to being. This means that many times it is abstract and not concrete. This means also that there is no clear storyline. How can you do an opera without a storyline? And why without a storyline? So I talked about the pathos, not wanting to be in the pathos, and the pathos is very connected to a story of winners and losers, or even a more complex story, right? But when things are sung, it gives them a kind of an identity, it gives them a kind of theatricality, which really promotes pathos. So when I combine the idea of a narrative, a story, identity, it leads me, even unwittingly, to the idea of the pathos. So that triangle for me is a triangle which I'm avoiding. I avoid the identity by looking into one person as if they are a universe. I will show it in all my operas. So in every opera, or let's say in none of the operas, there is a hero. And if there is a hero, he or she are not one, they are divided, they have internal voices. The internal voices are talking inside the person. That is one way in which I get rid of the idea of pathos, of narrative, and of identity. Now, another way is by thinking about the stories that I say or that I talk about, the stories that are unfolding in front of our eyes in the theater. In all the operas, the stories are kind of an afterthought. They are not the main thing. We are really witnessing or experiencing what's happening inside the hero. And it can be state of mind. It can be naked feelings, which are kind of a tableau of how a person is as a process is happening inside them. And it can be, like in Heart Chamber, a thread, a very, very minimal thread of plot, on which there is so much meaning hanging, not on what has happened now and then, but on the moment that something is revealed, the moment that something comes into being and we are just following it, the excitement of the gaze of a man and the woman in that case meeting and something happened. And so by canceling the importance of the word, and I will get back to it in a moment, the narrative, the hero, the drama, I get into a totally different space, which is still operatic. Why is it operatic? Because it's a kind of a universe. It's a universe which is theatrical, musical, and it has performers who are there with the orchestra, interacting with the technology, with the electronics, with the orchestra, which are dialoguing. So it is the structure of an opera, but it is actually located somewhere completely different. What is the role of the word in all that? I will talk about it with more details when I get into the specific operas, but I will just start by saying that my first opera, Mima, in word, didn't have text. So when I entered into the operatic world, I entered with full gas into the most extreme position. And now I will, this is the end of my general introduction. I will now take time and introduce to you each of my 4 operas, and I will tell you first which they are and what years they were written. I will start with Pnima, which was written in 98-99. I will continue to Saida Adama, which was written in 2004-2005. We'll go on to Infinite Now, which was about 9 years later, 2016-17. And finished with my latest opera, Heart Chamber, which was written in 2018 and 19. This talk for me is an exception because it's a talk without the possibility to dialogue with you. And I would like to invite all of you to a time where we can dialogue, which will be in April 26 at 4:30 Pacific time. And then I would be very delighted to talk directly, to dialogue, to hear comments, critique. I welcome all what you have to say, and I will answer all the questions you have. So I would be very much looking forward to that conversation in April 26. Okay, we are now going to take a tour in the garden or the orchard of my operas. That orchard is quite big, not because I've written so many operas, but each of them for me was really like living in a world, living in a universe. It was almost like I moved into that house, which was the opera Pnima, and then I moved to another house. And it really is very different than writing a piece, even if the piece is very large. And I have asked myself lately, actually, to have the same type of engagement when I'm writing abstract musical pieces, because it is so complete, that engagement. So I was asking myself to have the same type of engagement It is very strange psychologically. Why is it different when you write an opera and when you write a piece? Possibly it is different because in Europe, where all my operas were commissioned, you get a whole month to rehearse an opera. You get all your singers, you get the orchestra for anywhere 10 days to more. You get your soloists, everybody is there for a whole month. Not the orchestra, as I said, everybody. And then you have the electronic people who come and will be there for 2 weeks. So it's a kind of a dream situation where you can do amazing things. And that's why I think partly you are able to dream. You are able to create something which is hard to get to do. And that's why I love being in that universe. Also, you have to invent everything. You have to invent an idea. You have to invent where this music is taking place. You have to invent why. You have to invent all of your engagement. Nothing is given. It's not like I'm writing a piece to this ensemble which exists and it has been playing pieces. It's more than that. I'm jumping into a sea that I don't know anything about, and I have to know not only the depths of the sea and its color as I would know in a normal piece, but it's more. I have to know the history of that sea, its tales. Why am I in this sea? Which part of the world it is? It's much, much more encompassing when you write an opera. And so, when I was asked to write my first opera, and I was at the end of in the beginning of my 40, I was about 40 years old when I was asked, or maybe a bit younger, but I was writing when I was 40. I knew immediately actually what I wanted to do. I am a second generation to the Holocaust. Both of my parents were Holocaust survivors. And in Israel, my generation, our generation, is a very special one because nobody was talking about us and nobody was listening to what we went through because there was such a focus on our parents, and justly so, because what they went through was so unimaginable and so traumatic that it seemed like when we were born, they were giving us everything they could, so much love and so much. We were for them the only family that they had, because we didn't come from huge families. Because if our parents were survivors, they maybe had a few more people from their family, but not very many. So that in Israel, when the Holocaust, the second generation Holocaust survivor, which are us, began to speak, it was extremely hesitant. And it was a voice that was not heard before, a voice that didn't even know if it has the right to exist. One of the writers that was kind of the spearhead of beginning to talk, was David Grossman. David Grossman is a very important Israeli writer. I think he's worldwide known. And he wrote the book Sea Under Love, like in a dictionary, Sea Under Love. The first part of this book has to do with Momik, a young boy who meets the grandfather who was in the Holocaust, and the grandfather is mentally unwell, and they are trying to communicate. That communication brings the boy to a kind of totally, he's deconstructing his own personality, his own identity, goes through a shattering experience, and he's actually coming out of this as a destroyed and reconfigured human being. In this opera, there is no text. So the way that I bring this happening into being is by using vocalists, by creating very raw and very almost urgent and under the skin textures that actually are not telling us about what's happening, but they are enacting what is happening. The child is not not singing on the stage. We see a pantomime on the stage who is a child. The old man is another pantomime on the stage. This was the solution of Klaus Guth, my director, to that strange opera that he has gotten to work with. And there are two female singers who are the voice of the child and two male singers who are the voice of the old man. Why two? Because they actually interact with each other. Because the child is unsure, is finding his way to his feeling, to his, and the two conversing characters are helping to enact that hesitation, that coming of what I want to say into being through the interaction between two sides of his personalities or more. Same for the old man. The old man is crazy. So there are all these, it's multiple voices that are singing inside him. The music here is really the music which is like exposed flesh. It has no skin. It is not organized in songs. It's not organized in repetitions or anything that makes our life so much easier and enjoyable when we hear music. It is an exploration into a very strong emotional intensity. And I would like to play you an excerpt out of the opera, and that excerpt is a meeting between the child and the old man, where they are beginning to kind of feel each other. They are beginning to get closer. So nothing is happening there. It's two people maybe looking at each other, two people maybe starting to observe and to get closer to each other. Just that, not by they talked and he said that and he said then that. No, nothing like that. It's an extended moment of a gaze from one to the other, a recognition, maybe a connection that then is not happening. Let's hear the song of the boy, and I will play it almost in its entirety. Before I move to my next opera, I just would like to say that Pnima was commissioned by Peter Ruzicka in the Munich Biennale of 2000. Just to make sure I covered that. This was in Munich. Peter Ruzicka from the Munich Biennale went to be the director of Salzburg Festival, which is a huge and very important festival, as you might all know. And somewhere about 2 years or 2 years after I wrote Pnima, I got a phone call from him. And he said to me, Chaya, I had a conversation with Klaus Guth, the director who did Pnima, and we would like to come to you with an idea. We are doing this year in Salzburg. It's going to be the 250th anniversary of Mozart. And we would like to present all of his operas, all of them, from the first to the last. And he has one opera, Zaida, where the dialogues are not written and it's not finished because it was a tragic opera and he left it unfinished because he decided to use it in the Kidnap from the Harm as not as a tragic opera, as an opera buffa. And so it remained unfinished. What we would like to ask is if you would be interested not in completing it, which has been tried by Berio and by quite a few others, but creating a contrapoint piece that will somehow come inside instead of the dialogues, the missing dialogues, so that it can be brought on the stage. I heard that and I said, I need 2 weeks to think about it. And inside I was screaming, no way, no way. And I never say to anybody that I need 2 weeks for anything, because usually I immediately know if I want something or not. And so I closed the phone and I said to my husband, Stephen, Steve, this and this has happened and I am going to say no. And Stephen said to me, Chaya, it's Salzburg. Why won't you listen to the Mozart? He's a very wise man, and I took his advice. When I listened to the Mozart, I discovered one of the most non-traditional Mozart, because he has in the opera what he calls the monologos, and they are harmonically wild, really progressive, really unexpected. And they opened my ears and I immediately kind of fell in love with the music, which doesn't always happen to me with Mozart. But once that happened, I became very excited. And that idea started kind of sprouting in my imagination. I imagined the old village in ruins and a very modern new buildings coming into the village, being built inside, and they are also incomplete maybe, but they are all together as one new creature, not the old, not the new, but something new that happens from the interaction of both of them, which again brings me back to the interaction between the old man and the child in Pnima. So interaction, dialogue is something which maybe in my work takes the place of the narrative, of the external narrative. Because when there is an interaction and two sides are able to create a kind of a flow, of a stream of something that's happening between them, and is constantly changing and is constantly unpredictable, because these are two people, everything can happen. I find this extremely suspenseful, and I find it full of possibilities. Everything can happen, indeed, between when two people really interact. And in that case, two pieces were interacting. Were they really interacting? Mozart is dead many years now. So, was he interacting with me? Small Chaya from Kiryat Bialik? I'm not sure. Why am I saying it this way? It was my hardest thing to do, to not feel that I am about half a centimeter worth and Mozart is this towering figure. I knew that if this is how I would feel, nothing is going to come out of this opera. So I had at first to bring myself to the situation where I would feel that I'm conversing with Saida as if I earned my right to do that. And indeed, not everybody agreed with me when the piece was performed. Some people criticized it terribly and said, Mozart is Mozart, Czernowin is not Mozart, and etc. That was one of the kinder ones. But I did create a dialogue, and that dialogue became one of my most potent political statements. So Mozart Saida Adama is about the Sultan, Saida, and Gomaz. It's a kind of a triangle. The Sultan is the towering figure, a tyrant. Saida is a slave who is also his lover. She falls in love with Gomaz, who is Christian. The Sultan is Muslim. Saida and Gomaz are of different religions and they fall in love. They are trying to escape. There is a whole scene about them trying to escape. And then there is the sorrow, the anger of the Sultan, his statements about his power and his statement about how he will catch them and kill them. And then indeed he catches them. And the opera finishes with their asking for mercy. Each of them, Saida is asking for Gomaz, Gomaz is asking for Saida. I took that and I created a parallel plot. The parallel plot was an Israeli woman and a Palestinian man falling in love, wanting to get together, realizing that it is impossible for them because of the way that they were educated to hate each other, the way that they were educated to not be able to live with each other in a straightforward way. And once they are separated, they are attacked by a mob. And one of the people of the mob is what I call the archetypal father. This is the father, the type of the tyrant father who knows much better than his children, who is telling them, how could you even think about something like that? Such a betrayal. And then there is a big, big scene about a kind of a judgment that each of them goes through. It is a political statement about how we are imprinted by what we are told by our state, by our parents, all the things that we are taking for granted, that we are not very fast to ask, to problematize, to test, and to reimagine, just like we are now reimagining opera. The most important thing that I wanted to create is really kind of a dialogue between the two pieces, so that each of them So that Adama, my piece, Adama means in Hebrew land, and Adam in Hebrew is human, and Dam in Hebrew is blood. Hebrew is a very interesting language in this way. So blood, human, earth, or it's like the substance, earth. The most important thing for me was not only the political statement. As I was composing, the most important thing for me was the dialogue between Adama to Saida. How will Adama get into something from inside Saida? How will Saida, how can I make it so that Saida will answer Adama? So that it's not only Adama answering Saida. So the high point and the place I'm most proud in Saida Adama is when the character in Saida, Philomela, the Saida is singing. It's actually not Saida, it's Philomela. It's somebody from the outside, a woman from the outside is singing as a reaction, as an answer to something which is happening in Adama. So after the archetypal father and the mob are attacking the woman in Adama, Philomela from Saida comes and says, how can you do such a thing? How can you not understand her wish to be free? How can you not understand her wish to exist? As if Mozart was witnessing what happening, what not Mozart, but as if the piece was witnessing what has happened in Adama and is reacting to it. I would like to play you that part, and but I would like to actually show you two segments. I will play the beginning of the piece so that you see how strange and how inconceivable is the interaction in the beginning. And then I will also play that high point where actually the pieces are really talking to each other. So the dialogue between Saida and Adama in the beginning is the dialogue between strangers. They don't understand each other at all. But as the piece continues in time, they actually start to click. The piece is political in many ways, and I actually wrote a second version to it, which really highlights also the idea of our admiration of tyrants, how it works, how it comes into being, and the hatred of strangers. This all kind of is folded into that. But what we will see is the beginning, when the two pieces are stranger to each other, and that point where there is a longer part of Adama, it's the judgment of the mob and the father of the woman, and then Philomela comes from Mozart and gives a kind of a response, a very beautiful, one of the most beautiful arias of Saida, as in Saida Adama, as a response to Adama. Before we hear it, I just want to tell you a funny anecdote that the 3 evenings in the Salzburg Festival where this was played were very exciting and scary, because the public in the end was really divided, and people were screaming, boo, boo, and people were saying, bravo, bravo. It was really a real discussion or argument. And Stephen, my husband, told me the next story, that he was sitting near a very old woman. And as the piece finished, the same moment, they both jumped. He was screaming bravo, and she was screaming boo, boo. And then they looked at each other and they started laughing. That's a kind of another dialogue that happened there. So we will hear two segments. The first is the beginning of the opera, and not the very, very beginning, a little bit into 3 minutes from the beginning, and then just a small segment to show you how different the two operas are in the beginning. And then we will go to the second segment that will be from the second act, the second part of the opera, where we have the stoning, I call it. It's like people stoning the heroine, and the Philomela aria. are moving ahead in time, and we are reaching 2016-17, which were my years to write my mega monster, the opera Infinite Now. Infinite Now is 2.5 hour long, and actually sounds like it goes forever. It's a piece where, in a way, I stopped time. And we can talk about this more in the question and answer session. But in terms of what we are talking about, in terms of reimagining opera, what is Infinite Now about? That's a really hard one to consider. The piece is made out of two resources. One resource is a theater piece by the very well-known avant-garde director Luc Perceval. Luc wrote a piece called Front, which deals with the First World War. That piece has many varied origins. One of them is All Quiet on the Western Front of Remarque. So from that book, he's taking fragments and putting them in the opera. He also has other fragments from a book about a nurse and her, what she has gone through during the war as she was volunteering. Another resource was real letters by soldiers from everywhere. French soldiers, German ones, English. And he's putting all this together into a kind of in his theater piece, a kind of a strange, it's like a mosaic of impressions of all the different people and all the different countries talking together about war. When I was asked to do an opera out of this material, I said I cannot do it only on this material. It was for me too narrow, and I could not relate to it. It was extremely masculine, and I sometimes had almost the feeling that it was really giving the war a kind of an aura or mystique, even though it was not exactly anti-war, but to some degree it was anti-war. It was talking about the suffering. And so I brought, from my side, I brought, just like in Saida Adama, we had a dialogue. Here it's not a dialogue. I brought a totally different material. And that material is a part or fragment, but it is a story by Zhang Shuai, an amazing and very strong Chinese writer, who wrote the Embroidered Shoes. That's a book of short stories. One of the short stories is Homecoming, which is a story about a woman who goes to a house she thinks she knows in the night. She's kind of blindly going there, and she discovers when she gets there that she actually cannot go out. Sorry, her phone is hyperactive. She discovers she cannot go out. She discovers that the old man who lives in the house, she thinks he's crazy at first because he says that the house is on top of the ocean, which she never knew. He says that she cannot get out of the house, that she cannot make light. And she thinks something is wrong with him, but she discovers that he knows what he is saying. So she is in a way in a kind of a situation where it becomes like, infinity, where she doesn't know where she will live. The same story with the war. They are moving 10 kilometers to this side, 10 kilometers to the other side. They play football with each other, and then they shoot on each other. And that goes on for months, no end. So two situations which are totally desperate, without any light in the end of the tunnel. And it was not the stories that interested me here. It was the question, what motivates us human beings to continue when we have a situation like that, where hope is very scarce? Basically you have no reason to hope. You have nothing in reality that can feed the emotion of hope. Why do we continue? How do we continue? What makes us continue? And that those two stories are both like reflections when they are superimposed on top of each other in a very rigid structure. Actually, they supply us with a kind of a view over this question, where at the end you don't have an answer exactly, but you have a kind of an experience that brings you to the continuity of life. I hope. The opera is written for 6 singers, a trio, 2 trios of singers, and 6 actors. And the group are, 3 and 3. 3 singers and 3 actors are belonging to one story, and 3 and 3 are belonging to the other story, even though in terms of the actors, it can change. And the actors can participate, they talk, they intervene, and the singers also talk and whisper, and there is a huge electronic kind of thing that is running throughout, almost like a tape. It's fixed media basically. And for that electronic fixed media, we worked really, really hard. Now let me say who commissioned it, and you will then know where I worked really hard. Infinite Now was done in IRCAM, and I worked on it with Carlo Lorenzi, who did the electronics and who did also together we did the collecting of the material, and he did all the putting it together too, besides being creatively kind of a collaborator. And it was a commission of IRCAM, of the Theater Mannheim in Germany, and first and foremost, the Vlaamse Opera in Belgium, which has an opera house in Ghent and in Antwerp. And so in one summer, we had 15 performances all over Europe. In Paris Philharmonie, there was a version without the theater, but we had it in Antwerp, in Ghent, and in Mannheim. The director, Luc Percival, is the one that also directed the work. And I would like to play to you a part from the center of the opera. It is the only aria in the whole opera where Noah Frankel, the woman, is singing about her situation, but it comes out of breathing. So we will start in the breathing part and go all over to the aria. And you can hear then how the breathing, the body, the machinery of the body becomes a part of the vital text. So we will hear a part of the 4th act. The opera is written in 6 acts over the 2.5 hours. and we will hear a segment from the fourth act, from the breathing, where suddenly you get to hear the signal of the BBC News, and then the aria.
Welcome to the BBC News Desk. We have breaking news that
Wir sind gefährliche Tiere geworden. Wir kämpfen nicht. Wir verteidigen uns vor der Vernichtung. Dort hetzt mit Händen und Helmen der Tod hinter uns her. Wir haben eine wahnsinnige Wut.
Käme dein Vater mit denen drüben, du würdest nicht zaudern, ihm die Granate gegen die Brust zu werfen.
Clinging to the ground. In front of me should be the flat stretch of grassland. As soon as I stand I feel suddenly that it's not grass under my feet, but
we get to the last opera that I've written, and this was actually very, very close to that date. I've written it in 2018-19. Heart Chamber. Heart Chamber was commissioned by the German Opera in Berlin and was performed beautifully over a month and a half there. And I can say that for me, this was the opera where something very curious has happened. That many people came to see it 3, 4, 5 times. Not musicians who came and talked to me, and some of them baked me a cake. And it was a real conversation actually with a lot of people from the audience who were just people from Berlin who felt very strongly about the opera. Usually the one that came to talk to me, of course, were positive, but I've heard also about very strong reaction to the other direction. It was, but it was not so like in Saida Adama. It was much more people identified. People said, "Oh, you know, that's the story of my life. That's what I went through." Or one of the people that were working in the stage said to a person I worked with, so I heard about it indirectly. He said, "I can't believe it. I just got divorced last year, and this is like the story of that." So, for me, writing a Heart Chamber was a kind of a liberation, because in Saida Adama and in Infinite Now, I dealt with materials that I was handed. I dealt with material that I needed to create a kind of a reaction to. And in Heart Chamber, I asked, when the opera wanted me to do something, I asked, can I just do whatever I would like? I would like to just dream. And of course, they allowed me, and I decided to write about 2 people. It can be, in this case, it is a man and a woman who meet, and I wanted to really focus on the idea of change. What happened when 2 people meet and their meeting really changes them, so that actually we don't know who they were when they began and who they are when they are ending, because what's happening is that interaction again, that dialogue, and that dialogue is so powerful that it overcomes the confines of each of their ego. In this production, which was with Klaus Good, with whom I did 3 of the operas, Pnima, Saida Adama, and then he came back to Heart Chamber, it is not exactly like that on the stage, but this was the idea in the music. Now, in Heart Chamber, again, there is a huge arsenal of electronics all around the hall. So you are actually sitting as if you are in the head of the man and the woman. Again, the man and the woman are not one man and one woman, but you have the man, and there is the man and his internal voice. And I this time called it very clearly. There was the man who was saying what the man is saying, and there was the internal voice who was saying sometimes things which were very different than what the man, the external man, was saying. The same for the woman. There was the woman, the one that was talking to the world or being in the world, and there was her internal voice who actually revealed what she is really thinking. And between the internal voice, there is an interaction, and between the man and the woman, there is an interaction. On the stage, you see videos, you see the stage is very beautiful, and it tells a lot of stories. the staging. And when I work with a director, I give them utmost freedom. And since I believe in Klaus's work and I respect every director I work with, I believe that they should have their autonomy. And he really took it to an extreme, having the videos, having things happening in the videos, doors get closed, or people really meeting in the street. You see the street, and you see there are dancers. You will see all this in the video. But for me, I could maybe, if I were a director, I would maybe just have an hour and a half of eyes. Just the eyes of the man, the eyes of the woman, and maybe from time to time also the eyes of one eye of the internal people. I wrote the text to Heart Chamber. Now I had to do that, and this takes me back to Pnima, because I didn't want the piece to be ambiguous. The text is not a literary exercise in Heart Chamber. It is a kind of a vehicle. It is very minimal, it's very clear, it really almost like a matter of fact, except for the end, which is a bit poetic. But it is, you have, I can maybe read you just a little bit of the text. Just a second, allow me to get to my website, where there is a very good introduction to each of those pieces. So, here. No, it's not part I want to read. Okay, I will just say it from memory. Part of the text is, I don't trust you, I don't trust you, you hurt me, things like that. This is not a poetic text. And the reason why I wanted to write the text was because when I wrote Pnima and it was without text, it remained ambiguous why the piece was written. But I had a very strong reason why I wrote Pnima. I dedicated it to my parents, and the dedication was not only a gratitude for the love and everything that they gave me, it was also my rebellion. It was me telling them also, I also wanted a normal childhood, not only to be that amazing creature that was your whole family. Even my name is the name of the mother of my father that he lost. And so that idea that Pnima was a rebellion, I believe that people from my generation and my situation would have immediately picked up on that, but not others. It was very subtle. In Heart Chamber, I didn't want to have this type of subtlety and ambiguity any chance. I wanted to actually guide the listener to this very strange world that happens when two people meet. We are always educated to believe that that's the only way to live, in pairs, make children, and there is nothing more beautiful than love. Well, it is very beautiful, but it depends then what happens. It depends what happens later. The closest people can harm each other the most. And I don't need to give you examples, they are all around us. The closest you come, the more vulnerable you become. And we are talking about also gender issues of power, of vulnerability. It is a whole world of possibilities, and not all of them are ones of romantic beauty. And so, Part Chamber really is about all this. It tries to feel the body as it is excited in passion, or as it is receding in health. It tries to not approach this with the pathos of love stories from the opera world, but to actually really examine at the same time that it experiences what is actually happening. It's like trying to cast quite a brutal gaze and a very observant gaze, trying to have a very observant gaze that really at the same time experiences and at the same time analyzes what is happening, how dangerous it is, how amazingly beautiful it is, how exciting, euphoric, and crazy it is what is happening in those moments when a connection is formed, deformed, reformed, etc. And so that the motivating part in here is not the love story, but the change that happened in the two participants.
My bathroom is long and endless. It's white, but some moss is appearing behind the tiles. I don't notice it at first, but it's growing fast. Now I see it. I try to peel away the moss. I try to peel away the moss. I scratch at it hard with a brush, with a knife, with my fingernails, my teeth. The leaves are so small they escape me. Now they're sprouting out from under my fingernails, spreading across my hands, my stomach. Enveloping my breast, spreading across my throat, my chin, my mouth, my nose, my eyes. I cannot see. I cannot see. I can't move. I can't move. Can't breathe. Can't breathe. I can't. I
So we took a tour in this orchard. Maybe now you understand why it's so difficult to make a condensed tour. Those are each like a main meal. None of them is a dessert, and none of them is the opening of the appetizer. Each of them is like a very heavy main plate of a meal, and it's very difficult to put such an introduction. But I hope that this introduction serves to really highlight the way in which I actually betrayed the tradition of opera and tried to move it, to include things that belong, I believe, to our time. Please understand that it is not that I dismiss the operatic tradition, but as an artist, I do believe that if you have too much respect to the tradition, it will hamper you from moving forward. And so part of the work is also to bring everything to the present. So thank you so much for listening. Now, all the operas that I mentioned are actually published. Pnima is on Mod CD, DVD. Saida Adama is on Deutsche Grammophon DVD. Infinite Now is on the web, even in my own channel, and we will actually be able to see it here at Fullerton as a part of the Festival of Reimagining Opera, and that will happen. You will see in the program exactly the date and the time, and and also Heart Chamber is newly on a Naxos a DVD, which I'm very happy about. It just came out actually a few days ago. Now, I am going to hope to see you again because we will have a session of questions and answer, which will happen, as I said before, on April 26th, Monday, at 4:30 Pacific time. And I'm inviting everybody to join this dialogue, which I hope will be very vivid and full. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.